All right, so in this video, I'm just going to show you guys how to get through the lab environment. We'll actually go through the first lab here while we're doing it. So inside your first one will be module 2. At the bottom, you should have this lab 01 configuring initial firewall settings. So if you click on that, that's going to link you out to our NetLab system, which is where you guys will complete labs. And you can already see some people have got some scheduled there. So if you come out, you guys will have a drop down here that'll just say schedule for myself. You guys can go ahead and click that. And that will take you out to the scheduler. So if you guys haven't worked in NetLab before, the scheduler allows you to schedule a pod. A pod is a given amount of equipment. In our case, it's going to be a couple virtual machines and a firewall and then a router on the outside. And I'll show you the topology here in a second. You always want to schedule the first one that's available. And to schedule, you just click the line right below the red line, right? So just under the red line, we'll get the lab reservation for now. If you want to schedule it in the future, you could do that as well. If you need more pods, just click the right arrow over here. And I have like 12, 16 pods out here. They're way more than enough for this class. So just grab the first one that's available. If other students are on it, click right underneath that red line. And then on your end time, go ahead and give yourself plenty of time. I think I set the max reservation to 8 hours. That's fine. We have more than enough pods. So go ahead and schedule yourself out a little bit. You guys won't be able to do a day, but schedule yourself out at least 8 hours so you have plenty of time. Go ahead and hit submit. And somebody already scheduled on my one while I was talking about that. So let's try that again. And if it kicks you out like that and kicks you back to this home screen, close this window and come back into Blackboard and link out of there. If you don't go from the link in Blackboard, it will not spit your grade back to the Blackboard shell. So if you go straight into NetLab and try to get to it, that will cause a problem. Don't do that. Just go back into the Blackboard section. And not that one, but module 2. This one. Like I said, we got plenty of pods, so you guys can do that. I'll schedule a little further out so I don't conflict with somebody. Okay. So as you can see, yours will pop up with just your instance, not one of everything that I see up here. So we'll click on yours and you can click enter lab. That will fire up everything on the back end. Again, most of you guys have probably worked on this system in Internet Working 1, 2, things that you should have completed before coming in here. It doesn't take long to fire up. However, the firewall in Palo Alto takes a while to boot. That is not a speed thing. The virtual machine version of it is just slow in the beginning. It goes through a lot of checks and balances to make sure that there's no file system IO issues, things like that underneath the hood. So you'll see it take a little bit to fire up. You'll get our topology here. So for all of your labs, you guys will have this same exact topology where you will primarily be dealing with this client on this IP address here. We'll have this DMZ server, which hosts like FTP, web servers, things like that. We'll be out here on the 50.10. This firewall management network, notice that it's on the same IP as this. So the firewall has a 192.168.1.1. It also has that management port, like we've been talking about this week, which is set to 192.168.254. Okay. It then has a public IP address on the outside. So your 203.0.113.20 goes out to a firewall. And then from this firewall, we'll also have a link out to the internet. And it does link you out to the real world on this side. In terms of content and how things work, again, if you guys haven't done it, go ahead and always click on your content and undock it. And then you can slap this document. If I can get a hold of it here. There we go. Drag it to the left and you can do a side-by-side. Works the best. Click on your client. And then, of course, you could undock this one if you wanted to. So if you undock it and drag it on the other side, zoom this down a little bit and scooch this over. Where it looks like this. A little bit over here. And now you guys can see everything. As you go through these documents, you guys want to read the introduction stuff. It's going to explain what you're covering. You'll have the objective section or everything you're going to be completing. You will see not only the lab topology, but the theoretical topology you will be dealing with in this class, in this particular lab. So sometimes this may change depending on what you're seeing up above. All the usernames and passwords are in a table at the very top. So you'll need each of those through different things in this class. And then down below, you're going to set up all the different systems that you're going to do, right? So this is kind of giving you an overview, high-level lab steps of what you're going to do. This section down here is going to give you the detail of doing it. So we're going to stay in as our lab user. Note the password is Palo Alto with the special numbering. So capital P, and instead of O's or zeros. All right, once that comes up, we need to load Chrome. Or they tell you to use Firefox, sorry. Let's use Firefox. And you can type in that. Note that the IP address is an HTTP address. If you do not use the HTTP address, it will not go anywhere. All right. Sometimes it will redirect, sometimes it won't. In this case, most Palo Altos don't even bother to redirect. You have to enable HTTPS. Okay. You will get a certificate error warning. Just go ahead and click accept the risk and let it continue onto the website. If you don't get anything to pop up and it hangs like this, the firewall is probably still booting in the background, right? Like I said, this firewall can take a little bit to boot up. To check that, if you come back out to this screen where you have access to all your virtual machines, click on the firewall tab and see what you get here. If you have it at a login prompt, it should be responding, okay? If it says booting or something like that and it's taking a while, just let it boot until you see firewall-A for login. Okay, we'll come back here. We'll test it. I probably got something in here. 192.168.1.254. There you go. So now we got the login. We can do admin and then the Palo Alto password. And I am going to end up full screening this a little bit so you guys can see this better in the recording. Like that. Okay, so this comes back to that dashboard or that web UI that we talked about before. You can see your login. You can log out by clicking the log out down here in the lower left. You have your commit up here in the upper right. That's a big thing that you guys are going to be doing after you get all your configurations in. And if you need to see what the current running tasks are, you can click on the task log down here at the bottom, and it will tell you what it's done last and what you've gone through. Okay, so let's close that. It wants us to go out to the device tab, over to setup in the upper left, and to operations. And then down here, we go to load name configuration snapshot. You're going to do this for every single lab that you go to. So the way these labs work are, this are not progressive labs. As you configure a device, you end the reservation, everything gets wiped and set back up for the next lab. Okay. You will load this configuration, which is built for that particular lab. So lab 1, it gets you the preliminary stuff. You do the configuration. If you pick lab 2, it's going to do everything that you did in lab 1 for you, dump it in the config, and then you start from that as you're moving forward. All right. So once you got it in, go ahead and hit commit. In commit, you're going to see commit all changes. What's nice about this commit section is you can preview the changes to see what changed. You can also get a change summary. So if I click on change summary, it's going to tell me what's changing between the current config and what the proposed config is going to be. What's also nice, if you're using this in production, you can use validate commit, which is going to attempt to commit and see if there's any errors if it does it. All right, so it's a great way to check. Again, this is all different than what you guys have done on Cisco equipment. When you type that in, it's live right off the bat, right? Here, you make changes, you have to commit those changes. So we'll commit that real quick.
So on the validate, if it does detect errors, we'll just roll back to its last.
It will stay at where it's currently at. Yep. The validate goes forth as if it's trying to execute it. What's nice, you really want to try to do as many small changes and commit them after that. If you do too many, then there's a great chance for something breaking. But it also goes back and says, hey, you don't have a name on this, and it doesn't have to crash. Otherwise, it'll roll back. So these commits, like I mentioned earlier this week, are really, really fast. I know this seems slow. Trust me, this is fast. If you're on real hardware like that 820 that I use to run NetLab and such, it takes 5 to 10 minutes to do a commit. Easy. Long time by the time you're done there. So you hit close. It wants you to code check out your tasks, and you can see that we committed a new change. So we'll see that down here. We have auto commits and everything in between. Okay. Over here on the left-hand side, we've done the commits. We all look good there. Leave it open. We're going to end up setting up DNS and NTP. So if we go out to our services tab, and up here, we can see that we are set up for the updates.paloaltonetworks.com. Right there. We have our quad 8s, which is going to be Google for our DNS configuration. We need to set up our secondary DNS, which you'll notice is 192.168.50.53. This is going to be our internal DNS server that it needs to be able to do some lookups on. If we click on the NTP tab, does anybody remember what NTP was from the other day? Yep, network time protocol. This is so that we can make sure all of our logs sync to the correct time. And then when you guys use other devices on the network, you can tell it to sync off the firewall. So we're going to set up NTP over here and set up 0.pool.ntp.org. Okay. There's no authentication for that particular one. It's a public NTP time server. And does it have a setup secondary? It does. So that secondary one is going to be 1.pool.ntp.org. All right, we can go ahead and hit OK. We can see that that all got updated on that side. All right. So now what it's saying is we want to make sure that we're going to set your time zone. And here you're going to configure the latitude and longitude that aligns with the coordinates for Santa Clara, California, which is the headquarters for Palo Alto. So to do that, we're going to click on the device tab, again on setup, and now over to management. In the general settings, we'll go ahead and click on this cog. That'll give you the settings option to edit it. And then inside here, we need to update some changes. So we have firewall-a. Our domain is lab.local. We're going to set up an authorization banner or a login banner. Time zone, obviously they have ETC here. That would not be right, especially if we were choosing Santa Clara, California, right? What is ETC? Does anybody know? East Coast, right? These guys are fun. So let's see here. Let's set that just for fun because it doesn't matter. Once we clear this lab, it no longer exists, right? So we can set this to our time zone. What is our time zone here on campus? So what's that look like up here? You have UTC. We are what? -6 +6 from Gene time? -6, right? Okay, the other thing you can do is cheat, go up here to America. And under America, what town are we? Chicago, right? So let's cheat and do America, Chicago. There we go. All right, on the locale, we can see all that. It wants us to do the latitude and longitude. So it wants you to put in 37.00 and 122. I'm going to tell you to go a little off script here. Let's find out what Fort Hays' campus is. So let's do a new window. Again, this does not, whether you put in 37 or 122 does not break a lab, right? This is just basic info. So I wanted to at least show you guys how you would find this and then how do you put that in, right? So we go to maps.google.com. Zoom out. We're over here on campus. And we are over here on Dwight Drive. And let's just see, where is, there we are. Good old Hammond Hall. And we're right here. There's our coordinates. Okay. So if I click on that, we copied it to the clipboard. You can take that over here and paste it, right? No, you can't paste. You can't paste into the NetLab system. So let's do Notepad, paste into there. And then on this side, we can start typing that in. So we are going to do 38.87.185, and that's probably as deep as we'll go. Let's do negative 99.34402. Okay. All right. We're not going to end up checking anything down below that, so we'll hit OK. That configures our base map. We'll go out to our interfaces, and we need to configure that management interface right now. So we'll click on our management, and you'll notice that we have it set up for 192.168.1.254. We have a / what for our subnet? 24, right? And then our gateway is set up for 1.10. We need to change that to 1.1. Because that is the default gateway for what? Within this pod, but that ends up being what interface? It's the inside interface of the firewall itself, right? So this is on the management section, which is actually the inside network. We're connecting from the client inside network. You cannot hit the UI on 1.1. We only have the UI manageable by the 1.254. Okay. One thing you want to do, which it's showing down here at the bottom, is we can click add over here on the right-hand side. And this is going to allow us to set up only a particular client in order to access this management interface. So we want to set up our IP address, which on the client interface is 192.168.1.20 on a /24. And on the description, we're going to say that is MGT access from this host only. Okay. Go ahead and hit OK. Now, we haven't committed those changes. Another thing we need to do is they want you to check for software on this device. So we're going to go to device at the top. We're going to go to software on the left. There we go. And under software, we'll click on check now. It will take a little bit to do a search, and we can see that we are currently running 1102H2. Does anybody know what H2 might mean? Yep. So you've got 1102, right, as your base. And this came out after that. So does anybody have an idea what we use? There's a word that starts with H in our industry that we use, where it's released mid-cycle. Hotfix. Yep, that's exactly it. So this is 1102 Hotfix 2 that was released for this particular version. Okay. We can check the release notes for that to see what got updated. When you click on that, it's going to take you out to the internet. Now notice we have no internet, right? Within the pod. Why is that happening? Well, that's because we haven't configured the firewall yet, right? All we've set up is the management interface. We have set up no way for this traffic to go out to the internet yet. The only thing that can go out is the firewall itself to go check for updates. But as a user on the inside network, we have not configured any internet traffic just yet. It turns out there is a new major release version in this case, which is 11.1.0. And so if you wanted to, you could download and you could actually validate and install. Now it tells you not to upgrade this over here. If you want to come back into this lab after you've completed it and run an update just to see what it looks like, you can perfectly do that. Because as soon as you end that reservation, it wipes the firewall, resets it back to where it was when you started. Okay. So what I'm saying by that and meaning by that is you can do what the lab tells you to do and don't be afraid to go back and go off script and do something you want to explore. Like us, we changed the latitude and longitude. It won't matter because in lab 2, when you make a reservation, they're going to set it back to Santa Clara, Palo Alto. right? Okay, so at this point, they just wanted to demonstrate that there's updates out there. Now it wants us to go ahead and commit those changes. So we will commit. And over here in the middle, we can see in the commit scope that we changed things under device and network. We click the down arrow. We can see we changed things under system, and the config object is where we changed the most. If we look at our change summary, this should show up. I don't know why it's not here, but it should be showing up. I don't know why it's not showing up, but it should. Go ahead and hit commit now. Again, this will take a little bit. Now, there's nothing for you to fill out in these labs. And for this particular one, I do not have you fill out any lab documents. So what will happen is when you end your reservation, it will send a grade back to Blackboard. Okay, immediately. Yep. And I'll show you what that looks like in Blackboard when it does it. Which will also define how I'm actually grading you for these, right? So the way that works, to get full points, you have to be in the reservation for a basic amount of time. In other words, there's no way you can complete the lab in 2 minutes. So if you're only in there for 2 minutes and then end it, you can't get all the points, right? This says it's committed. We hit close. And if we see over here in our document, that's it for the first lab. All right. So now you can go explore. You can go do whatever you want. It's not going to hurt anything. You're done with the lab. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead and end it so you can see what it ends up looking like. So if you guys want to close your client connections, and we'll come up here. Oh, you know what? I hope nobody's been talking this whole time. Jim or Steven, do you guys have any questions? If you have, hold on a second. I don't have my microphone on where I thought I did, or my speakers. Give me just a second, Jim. Okay. You still there, Jim? Yes. Hear you now. No questions. Okay, great. Okay. So you come back to this main screen up here at the top under reservation. You just click in reservation now. If you run out of time for whatever reason, you accidentally set it for an hour and you need more time, just hit request more time. It should give you another half an hour block or an hour block, however long you say. I tell you that you have the max extension of 8 times. So if it gives you 30-minute blocks, you can extend your reservation by 4 hours. All right. We have tons of pods. I'm not worried about it. Even though this class is a little large, I think we have 33 students in this class. There's still plenty of pods. All right. I think there's 16 pods. Well, that means 16 of you all have to get on in the same exact half-hour time block. The closest we're going to get to that is during this class when you guys are doing your labs, right? So I made sure to have plenty of pods. The rest of the time that can service thousands of students in that block. All right. We come out here to end reservation. It says, do you want to end the reservation? Yes. Your reservation is finished. Hit OK. All right. That will kick you back to this screen. Go ahead and close that screen. And if you come back here to your learning modules inside the class itself, go down to your grade center, full grade, or you guys have like my grades in there. Has anybody done that yet? You clicked out of it? Okay, it will, just hasn't done it yet. It should kick back a grade in for you in the grade book. All right. It will typically be, should be, oh, you know what? I didn't go change that. I will change that. Ignore lab 1. So it should kick back a grade. Right now, I forgot to click a button that tells it to do that. It will score it out of 10 points. All you have to do is do the lab. You should get the full 10 points. If you go in and want to just play around on that lab and use the link, it will reset your score for that one, meaning that if you go in there for 2 minutes and then hit end reservation and it drops it down to 2 points because you were only in there for a short amount of time, don't worry about that. Once I know that you've done the labs, which I can tell in the system, I will go back in the grade book and put all 10s in. All right. So please do more labs than you want, just so you can get familiar with the interface as we can go through. All right. And we should have a bunch in the introduction post. I don't know what's up with my grade book. I'll fix that. That's essentially how the labs are going to go for the class. So you guys will fill that out. There's no reports or anything like that. You guys just have the quizzes that you saw on your side. Anything else you guys have questions on in terms of labs? This one's a short one, right? We're just setting up the stuff, but it will get a little bit harder as we go through. In each section, I have just the firewall configuration that covers the PowerPoint. If I know that it's going to be a complicated lab, I will probably record the lab. All right. So this may not be the only lab I record, but I won't be necessarily recording all of them. Mostly because I go off script and I tell you more about what the firewall can do. So, all right, stop the recording.